All right, welcome back to another great episode of Dr. J Radio Live. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the city of demons in La La Land, folks. That's right. My guest today is also in the Golden State. He is well, before I even tell you what he is, if you saw the social media, you probably know. But on this show, you've heard from NSA, you've heard from DEA, you've heard from CBP, you've heard from DIA officials, okay? And CIA. Most importantly, you've heard probably more CIA officers and agents than others combined. But this one is a one of a kind because it's the only one that I know that served in this branch, a very, very elite branch at that. That is the United States Secret Service. And I'm not talking about the people who are looking for counterfeit money, which do their damn job. We're talking about presidential detail, okay? With that being said, I'm welcoming back, because he's been on the show before, the one and only Mr. John Carmen. John, welcome back, dear friend.
Cool. Nice to be back. Always available for Dr. J. Always.
Appreciate that. Definitely do, and I know the people listening do. Now, let's go back to when you joined the Secret Service. First of all, how did you join? I mean, we'll talk about your other law enforcement.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people really have no idea what that means. It conjures up all kinds of, images. If they've even done any research, if they've ever met a Secret Service official of any kind. And you mentioned one category where they're paper chasers and stuff like that, which is still respectable. But the job that I had put in for was a special detail of Foreign Missions Division, White House detail, protecting the President of the United States, the First Family, all of the staff, anybody who's there, and or anybody who he designates for protection, which the President has the authority to do, and the ambassadors, the foreign missions, or the embassies, and so forth. And we did counter-terrorism work, like I was looking for Carlos the Jackal back in '74, that type of thing.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it takes 1 in 1,500 qualified applicants to get the job that I got. So even I was more qualified, I have to honestly tell you. Out of the guys that did get it, I was more qualified than a lot of the guys that did get the job, and I had to go to the academy with these other guys, all 15 or 20 of them. And that was before Jimmy Carter switched the basic academy down to Georgia. So my basic academy was in Washington, D.C. I drove back across country in 2 separate cars, of course, with another guy from California. So I think they recruited maybe 2 or 3 guys out of Southern California on a nationwide thing. This was during the Nixon administration time frame, 1973, 74 time frame. So I came on approximately 2.5, 3 weeks after Nixon had just left after the Watergate fiasco. In fact, they were still filming All the President's Men in the streets at 2 or 3 in the morning next to the Russian embassy and the Washington Post, which is right behind it off 15th Street, which is a couple blocks away from the White House, when we were doing our own protection at the Russian embassy at that location years ago. But anyway, the academy, 19 weeks, Washington, D.C. Then after the 19 weeks, we go to Beltsville, which is a special 6 to 8 weeks, if I remember correctly. Shooting, law enforcement, protection, all kinds of stuff. The very first hour of the first day of that academy, after you passed the other, meant that you were qualified to even go through their stuff by that time, was a question. Will you take a bullet for the president? If you have a problem doing that, you're free to leave. Nobody's going to say anything.
That's actually a key, right? Because that's exactly what when the Reagan assassination attempt happened, that's the Secret Service agent didn't even blink. He dived right into that bullet.
Well, he didn't dive. I mean, McCarthy, and I have to tell you, I've got a special story. I want you to remind me, because I might get sidetracked on this. But I interviewed a young man in front of the White House connected to that. So in 1976. But when Tim McCarthy spun around with his arms open, he didn't spin around like grabbing for his gun first. He spun around like, what the hell was that? And then he was still spinning around to block. That's key. But he got hit with a bullet. Reagan didn't get hit with a bullet.
Yeah. No, Reagan did get hit, right? That was
Not with a bullet. Not with a bullet.
Well, what was it that caused him that everyone was fearing? I thought it was the bullet
got
to
hit.
the chest.
He got hit with what we commonly call a flechette, a disc. Which, if you go back to the 72 church hearings or whenever that was, the House, the Committee on Assassinations, HSCA, I can't even speak straight. The House on Senate Committee hearings on assassination, something like that.
I didn't even know there was one. Wow.
Oh yeah, I mean we're talking way back, but I mean there's so much history and information that I have to divulge you wouldn't believe. But basically, if you pull up John Judge on a YouTube search, John Judge, who's now deceased, has connections to intelligence community, family members, whatever. Lived in Alexandria, Virginia, which is real close, and he was divulging information that John Hinckley already shot off all of his bullets by the time the sound was being captured, and they could match it on the video. Was that the shots already rang off, and then Reagan got hit with something else when he had an arm waving, his left arm was up, and then those two stupid DC cops. I'm sorry. We're looking around to look at the president. Duh, how stupid is that? Because that's counter to our training in Secret Service. Your protection is only as good as you watching the crowd that could pull out a gun versus you having to look around and go, oh, the president, wow, like I see him all the time. Aren't you impressed? It's all BS. They're not supposed to do that. That's why Reagan got shot in a second place, was that they allowed these guys to do that. They weren't trained. They're DC cops. They should have had the uniform division there. Those are not Secret Service trained people. So
now,
that's
you obviously have a far more vigorous training. That's why you're saying this, right?
Oh, of course. I mean, we shot guns till it was sickening, and you're doing it in your sleep, and it was in the freezing cold winter months. Back when we were using revolvers and shotguns and Uzis and stuff still, but they've switched and upgraded to a few different guns by now.
What are they, Israeli traded Uzis or something, or? Then again, it was
MP5s, Heckler and Koch semi-automatics, and they still stuck with the Remington 870, which is an excellent shotgun for rifled slug and so forth. If you've ever seen a rifled slug, I mean that's a big bullet. You can knock down helicopters and stuff like that.
Let me ask you about. In your training, I'm assuming you had serious driving to do for the Beast.
Right? Oh, yeah. Well, not all of us drove the Beast. That was another category of a job that I didn't particularly want to go in for, the driver. But I've been around it. I've seen it. I've talked to these guys. You work next to them, but it's like working for Technical Security Division, totally different. If you work for them or if you work for the other, or I had one guy actually try to solicit me for something that was not so attractive to handle the escort for the food and the shopping thing. And I'm going, well, wait a minute. How am I going to go out there and use all of my training and expertise escorting food vehicles? I won't say what kind. And then what's next? Food taster? Like way back during Cleopatra when they had food tasters for poison and stuff.
Kidding me. So someone would really be, each time, every meal, would literally taste the food knowing that there was a possibility that it'd be poison?
It's possible, but I can't discuss that one. I mean, I don't want to pull that game. And we get a lot of fake SEALs and fake Secret Service guys and CIA. Yeah, if I tell you I gotta, and then they taper off.
That you're telling me, I'm assuming clearly there's a lot of classified things that you can't tell me? And
of course, but I did not sign a non-disclosure agreement. Therefore, I can discuss up to a certain amount. But if I go over a certain level, I'm not going to just blatantly say certain stuff like security procedures. I mean, if you watched Olympus Down, and you're going to see Olympus Down 2, which is coming up on or about the 23rd, or did I miss it? There was supposed to be another one with Gerard Butler, who plays a really good Secret Service agent. He's Scottish descent, so I go, okay, we got a little background similarity. I got some English, Irish, Dutch, German, something, Viking, Scottish thing in there.
The first one was like Koreans took over the White House, right? And they were all stuck in the Peoc?
Oh, my God, yeah. I mean, if they took ideas from just one or two of those movies alone, we'd be in trouble.
Now,
Because,
real quick, for all those who don't know what the Peoc is, can you explain what it is? And what it stands for?
Had to take a drink. No, I can't. You tell me. What do you think it means?
Oh, Presidential Emergency Something Center?
Yeah, but where did you get that? See what I mean?
A documentary on History Channel.
Right. They call it different things. That's why I can't say what I think it is, because we have different acronyms. If it's already been published on one of those stupid, History Channel things, those are sanitized. And I've watched a couple of them just to go, okay, let's go see what they're going to say. And you see part of it, but they don't tell you everything, of course, because they want to sanitize a certain amount. And what you see. Hollywood is much better and more exciting, actually, in a lot of manners. If you see, In the Line of Fire, very good movie, very good. The storyline is good. Some of the features are good, but they make failures in procedural errors. If you are a real street cop or a street agent or something, you're not going to do what these guys did, and it's Hollywood. So they're building up a certain thing. Then if you go to the Sentinel, if I'm remembering correctly, that's Michael Douglas. Then they get into passwords and stuff. I said, oh my God. Do you realize the targets that we used are paper targets, but they're like Hogan's Alley. We get different pictures. Oh, there's a scruffy looking guy. He's got a gun. You shoot. You turn and shoot. Oh, there's a female that's really ugly looking. She's got a gun. Boom. You turn around and shoot it. Then you got one with a baby in her arm. She's got a gun. You shoot her too. Just catch the baby.
Let me ask you this. One thing that stuck out in that movie was when they were doing some investigation and they were explaining the different ways that the Secret Service versus other law enforcement pull out their guns. Is that accurate where you pull it out and automatically before you even point the weapon, you have already unlocked a safety?
No, that's not correct.
Okay, so that was fiction, Hollywood.
What makes them think there was a safety on in the first place?
Very good point. That's a very good point.
Does an officer pull a revolver and have a safety? No, he doesn't.
There are no safeties on revolvers.
I'm listening at the highest speed possible, and I'm visually looking at something at a higher speed than you can think. And if I'm reaching for my gun, it's not out fast enough. I already know what I'm doing. And I've pulled my gun on people who have jumped the White House fence, arrested them successfully, cuffed them up, and all kinds of stuff. And I can actually walk you through one scenario that actually happened. And it was a black guy in a three-piece suit, tall. I'm 6'3". He was probably 6'4", maybe 6'5", but very tall. Slender build, basketball size, right? Height-wise. He had a briefcase. He already set off an alarm, one of several. By the time he got to a certain point, I'm already out there. I had a supervisor behind me. God only knows what the supervisor was going to do, an ex-Marine. I'm the one that had the duty, so I'm the one that pulls the gun out. Stop, freeze, don't move. What's in the briefcase? Just papers. Throw it to the side on the ground, which is grass, the grassy south lawn. And I'm keeping him busy. I said, do you have any weapons? Okay, put your hands on top of your head, turn around, get down on your knees. And I'm walking up to him. I said, what's your name? What do you want to know that for? In case I have to notify next of kin after you've been shot. That kind of stuff. And I'm talking, keeping him talking. I'm a very unique person. I'm going to talk to you and do my job and I'm going to get information while I'm talking. And I'm giving you information to make you think and do what I tell you to do. If you don't do it, then something else will happen. And a lot of cops on TV, and I'll criticize the Miriam Carey case, which happened, they didn't talk to her, they didn't communicate right, and she ended up taking off and going to the Capitol building where Capitol Police shot her and killed her, and she had a baby in the back seat. So anyway, I take this guy, cuff him up, search him real good, double check the briefcase, it feels light, but you still don't know what's in it. You don't know what's in it. I'm telling you, most people go, well, it's probably just a piece of paper, like you said. Well, why would you want to open it or touch it anyway? How do you know there's no biological, chemical warfare type stuff in there? You don't know that. How do you know it's not in the lining? How do you know it's not electronically controlled or something? You don't take it anywhere near the building. You walk away. In fact, the supervisor wanted me to walk a certain direction to take the guy to the north gate, which is where we would normally probably take a guy, because that's like a detention area. We can lock him up, we can search him, and whatever. He's cuffed up. I said, no, I'm going to take him out the other gate, away from the building, as far away from the White House, and that brings up another case, and then walk him over there and then unleash him onto the agents who end up doing follow-up stuff and arresting him and taking him somewhere else. I don't even remember having to do a police report.
I wonder if DC police did it for you.
No, Secret Service. It's all Secret Service stuff. But
interesting.
I had such a background for writing reports. I hardly ever had to do any reports. You know why? Because they have some person in an office nearby, and they type up what they want, Secret Service report, and it gets put away. And unless they called you for court for some reason, you'd never even have to worry about it. So, wow, that's pretty high class. Don't even have to do the report anymore. What did I do all the training? Just let some other guy do it, right?
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's a separate case. But yeah, that worked out. Didn't have to shoot the guy. However, there was another jumper, black taxi driver by the name of Charles Plummer, who jumped the fence 5 minutes before I was going to relieve the guy on the 11 o'clock shift, 11 to 7, on the north portico. If the guy had waited 5 to 10 more minutes, I would have been the one he would have had to have dealt with. And we can only speculate what might have happened. But the guy that was there, he shot the guy one time in the chest. The guy expired right there at the scene. He had a big pipe or something. It could have been a pipe or it could have been something else, with an explosive attached inside or not. So you don't know.
There are two questions in the chat.
Go ahead.
I'm going to read them in reverse order. The first is Third Phase of Moon. Blake and Brent Cousins, one of the world's largest UFO YouTube channels. And their question is, did the agent see things the president did that was questionable in regards to illegal activity?
The president, what year?
Well, you were there 74 to 77, so that was the beginning of Carter
Nixon.
And the end of Nixon. Well, Nixon was out in 73, 74.
It was still
right?
it was still Nixon.
So Ford.
Nixon administration. Ford came in. He was his replacement. He pardoned Nixon. I didn't have too many opinions about it because I didn't dig into the Watergate stuff. The indicators are that some people did do something, but unless you understand how compartmentalized it is and how protected the office of the president is, you can't just blame the president blatantly on stuff and just say, oh, well, that was the president. They didn't like him. They wanted to get him out. Some guys burglarized, say the name. I'm getting bad on names. The guy's office. It was a psychologist's office. And the one who wrote the book, Ellsberg, right? Daniel Ellsberg.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they were trying to get into a file. This is the story. There's several theories about this. Was that they were
Pentagon
trying to get
Papers,
into,
right? Daniel?
Right.
Okay.
They were trying to get into the file and find out something about him that he divulged to a psychologist, which would be a violation of law. But you've got people like G. Gordon Liddy, ex-FBI. You've got all these other guys connected to the White House plumbers. even a guy named Frank Sturgis, who goes back to the Kennedy assassination and the Bay of Pigs. Mm-hmm. So if you go way back, I mean, this is a historical thing, and I'm not a historian of that caliber.
But you also have the E. Howard Hunt, one of the plumbers that was involved with JFK assassination. Apparently, the grassy knoll. He had, first of all, sued the Spotlight magazine, if I'm not mistaken, it was called, for defamation, which is a very low standard if you're a private citizen, which he was. And he lost. So that implies that the story they wrote that he was
accurate.
Exactly. The second is, what about his deathbed confession? Why would he say that right before he dies?
Well, he actually gave that to his stepson, who's still alive, and then he passed it on publicly just a few years ago, that sort of thing. It's all possible. I agree. I think it's probably true, but I've looked at this man's face before when Nixon resigned and stuff like that. I don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be. I think there's a lot more to the whole thing. And when they start talking about the Bay of Pigs means something else. The Bay of Pigs was actually when Kennedy was doing the thing about the CIA, because the CIA wanted to invade Cuba and overthrow Castro and all these other things. And there was another guy, Felix Rodriguez, who was involved in that. And Felix Rodriguez goes back to another guy named George Herbert Walker Bush.
Yes, that's right.
That's the connection. Bush.
Wasn't some of what Bush was involved in for JFK, for instance, he's had a knack for naming things after his wife, Barbara. Wasn't there a ship, Barbara? Zapata Oil, all that. I know there was a 2-hour discussion I had on
Bush has got so many dirty connections. He goes to Barry Seal and a bunch of other people that are still alive today.
Barry Seal, the drug runner, the cocaine runner that worked for the Medellin cartel, Escobar and all that, right?
And the CIA.
And the White House with
watch that movie with
American Made with
Tom Cruise.
Yes.
Now I only watched it because I wanted to evaluate it, because I'm not going to watch it just to aggravate myself, because I already know the truth about a lot of things. So I'm going to look at it and go, okay, let's see what they're going to put out. And I'm analyzing. I don't do it intentionally. I do it because that's my nature, and I've analyzed and profiled millions of people. People don't get that. I have more expertise than a lot of the FBI agents that claim they're profilers, let alone remote viewers or something. But if you look at the information, it's like it goes off on tangents and they tell you other things, and all of a sudden you're going, oh yeah, there's these little inside innuendos and jokes that are like, yeah, that's very amusing. I like the way the guy did it. And then all of a sudden Trump doesn't want to release information because Bush hadn't died yet. Well, now that he's dead, he can release JFK stuff. What's the point? Have the balls to release the information to the American public. We're being lied to for so many, many years. And I'm 66, and even I had contact with Jim Garrison before he died years ago. And he told me on his deathbed, he was in a hospital or something. He says, stay healthy, try to keep all the stuff truthful, and when they release the information under Freedom of Information Act or otherwise, then you'll know the truth. All that stuff that Oliver Stone did was close, but it was not totally 100% accurate. This BS about the bullets going zigzaggy and all that. No, there were more shooters. There were like 8 shooters. I've got a contact with a guy who's ex-CIA, or if you can say ex. I was talking to him on a drug smuggling issue on the border and the smuggling issues, and all of a sudden he blurts out, oh yeah, he was in Dallas that day too. And I said, oh my God, I didn't know that. So we start talking about that. He was in the area, so he would be 20 something. So he's at least 10 years older than I am. And I was 10 years old in 63, just to give you an idea. So we're still being lied to.
Well, there's actually more people now that believe that the Oswald story, the lone gunman theory, is false than there were 50 years ago.
It is. Listen, I was actually living at a military base in Japan at Atsugi where Oswald was stationed. And I've lived off base too. But the point is, Oswald was ONI. He was CIA.
Office of Naval Intelligence?
That's correct. He has a two.
Ooh.
He has a 201 file. So how many of you guys, I hear people in the background, have a 201 file? Tell me. Raise your right hand. Or your left hand. I don't care.
Right, raise a hand.
Nobody's raising any hands out there, damn it. So look up what Oswald's 201 file, and there's an actual site for that. And you can look through documents and documents and documents, and you're going to have to get a job to pay for the time that you're busy looking at documents all day long. And I've talked to an FBI agent years ago that actually did a little thing years ago. And I was looking at this stuff, and I'm adding this up because I had already lived in Japan, already went through some law enforcement, was already out of Secret Service in another agency and doing some other work. And I'm looking at this, I say, yeah, it all fits. It all fits. And people are stupid and ignorant, but that's what they sell the American public. All the Americans, in their mind, is they're stupid. I'm starting to agree with a lot of it, is that they don't understand the lone gunman theory is a lie. They have other shooters. That's what the CIA
is it so much
puts out.
stupid, or is it just the fact that it's what mainstream is feeding everyone?
Yes. The mainstream media is BS. What's that guy's name? Jim Acosta. I would have dragged Jim Acosta out by his feet.
Secretary of Labor, the one that made the deal, the 13-month plea for Epstein when they should have been a life sentence.
No, the media guy.
Ah, okay.
Jim Acosta, CNN, fake news.
One that caused all the problems with Trump.
Yes, I would have dragged him out by his ankles, cuffed up, screaming. And yeah, the media could probably take pictures and whatever. So what? If I'm Secret Service, I will handle him the way I want to and have to, and toss him out, on his butt. And they actually let him back. And I said, no, I criticized somebody about that. I said, no, you don't let somebody like that back in. He interrupted the flow of government with people allowed as a privilege to come to the White House and ask questions. President does not have to have the West Wing with media. He can kick them all out. I've already advised somebody of that too. And I think it was way back either Eisenhower, Nixon, or Kennedy in between that allowed the West Wing to even exist with media. They have an actual section there where they can do these little stand-ups. They don't need them there. They've got a place in the executive office building next door. I was going to say EOB. And if they want to go to these things, they can go there. Make them check in. Make them do whatever. But instead, for their convenience for the American people, they allow them to do stand-ups every night. So they can go, okay, yeah, there's the White House. There's the Secret Service guy at the North Portico. Yeah, we're really at the White House, and that's the White House stand-up, and they're doing a little presentation of whatever BS they're putting out to the American public that day.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of great stuff.
I've almost arrested some of those. I've almost arrested people like Judy Woodruff. Mm-hmm. She didn't have a pass one day. She got caught sneaking around the corner from the White House press corps area to the main mansion to see if something was going on, and I caught her because I was standing right there. Like, really, Judy? You're picking around the corner? Where's your pass? Oh, I left it in it. No, don't move. You're not going anywhere. If she had moved 1 inch, I would have cuffed her up and put her on the ground. Physically. I've also almost arrested a person named Barbara or I almost said Wawa, right? Barbara Walters. And she came up to the gate one day in a limo with a limo driver, and the guy says, oh, I got Barbara Walters here, and she's got an appointment with Miss Ford or something. Really? So I'm on the radio, I'm on the telephone. Yeah, there's a guy out here blocking the gate, and we didn't have any traffic, which means it's not one of our vehicles, obviously. And so they're running stuff through. And I'm really antsy. My handcuff.
What do you mean running stuff through? Just running the gate?
No. We're running her name through a computer, through a special database. We're running her through a list of people who are allowed to even come up and approach the gate, type of thing, or visitors, like people who have appointments and stuff. No appointment whatsoever. And I went out and contacted her, opened up the door. There's Barbara Walters, plain as day. She didn't have a very nice, pleasant smile on her face either. And I asked her for her ID because I had to verify her information. Name, date of birth, address, and official ID, and work and stuff. Oh, I don't have any, she says. Something to that effect. And I'm just like, really? I'm rolling my eyes now over the airwaves here. Really? Stupid. I should have just cuffed her up right there. But the problem is you don't know what's in the vehicle. You don't know what is in her mind. You don't know what she's there really for and why her driver's blocking off the entrance to the White House entrance to a gate that we use thing. So basically supervisors are saying, no, get that car out of there, get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. If I had cuffed her up or cuffed him up at gunpoint or not, it would have stopped right there and then we'd still have to move the vehicle.
Now, let me get to that other question because
Go ahead.
It's actually quite some time ago. Let me find
go ahead.
Here.
I get sidetracked, but there's so much.
No, hey, I just wanted you to keep on the roll because you're.
Really
interesting stuff. It's not every day.
You're just scratching the surface.
It's not every day we hear from a Secret Service agent, so obviously that's a huge thing. Okay, Nicholas Cashmore. Can you talk about unfathomable incidents and advise us what the public wrongly knows?
I'm hearing bells. What?
Can you talk about unfathomable incidents?
That's a good question. Unfathomable. That makes you sit here and go, you must have gone to college.
And advise us what the public wrongly knows.
Okay, I need more details about.
Well, I'll give you an example. Something bad that the government did, like maybe was 9/11, something that they did, and that the public thinks that it's these 19 guys.
I'm doing that right now. I'm disclosing information to you about government corruption, which involves U.S. Customs, but I'm not talking about that yet.
Let me add on to Nick's question real quick.
Go ahead.
What is the worst thing you've ever seen or heard that happened dealing with the president or the Secret Service or something in the executive branch or the White House or something like that, or even an ambassador that is so wrong, yet we were told a lie?
It's a really good question, and I don't have an immediate response, and I'm not being protective. I'm just saying that I don't remember actually seeing something that bad when I was there. And that was when Ford was there. I was still at Foreign Missions Division when they're setting off bombs next to the Russian embassy, counter-terrorism type activity. Then I was getting death threats, by the way, and then I transferred.
Wait, while you were in the service?
Yeah, can you believe it? I got death threats.
Specifically you, not just the Secret Service? Interesting.
No.
Why did they single you out?
Because I'm that good. Because what other reason could it be? I found a suspicious package outside of the British embassy one night while I was on patrol, and I had some idiot supervisor. Well, how did you see that? It's dark. Look, I do my job. I walk around. I look. I'm doing my job.
Well, you were trained to be a Secret Service agent, and obviously they put you on presidential detail, which puts you with world powers a lot.
Well, sure, and I've got more training than what you just said. See, you passed over it very carefully, and this is what I do for a living, is I dissect what people say, and I go, well, people don't really understand. I was not totally 100% trained by Secret Service. I was also trained in martial arts. I spoke several languages.
And DEA, I read.
I have a James Bond type of a profile. I've been traveling with a military family every 3 years. And I'm going, my God, maybe my dad didn't tell me everything. Maybe it's actually another agency or something.
Like the CIA or something like that?
Maybe, but it's like I've got the exposure, you see. So it's like, okay, so when John Carmen's out there walking around on a midnight shift, I'm doing my job. Whereas other guys who may be screwing around, sipping on a brandy, smoking cigarettes, or screwing some Russian female agent or something, then they're not supposed to be doing that. They're supposed to be out there with me doing the same work, and I'm the one that was getting results. So put 2 and 2 together, which equals 6, and you got a couple of people who are jealous, and they don't like me, and that's because we had some idiots that were from New York that thought they were Batman and Robin type of thing, literally. And that's during the Frank Serpico era with 73, 74. Frank Serpico, the godfather of whistleblowers. And I've got
Yeah, but even he ended up getting shot in the face by what they believe to be another police officer, right? So yeah,
no, it was a drug dealer, and the cops didn't back him up the way they were supposed to.
maybe
So
on purpose, you
he got
think?
shot. He got shot coming through a door. They didn't back him up and push the door open, and he got pinned between the door and the door jamb, and he got shot by some person. It's pretty accurate. You'd have to go back and watch the movie or something, but it's very accurate there. But he's still alive, God bless him. But the thing is, some of these guys that I worked with were not what I said was in the same category as highly trained. Some of them were leftovers from the old regime, White House police, or one of the other older agency type things where they rotated through somehow and they got the job, and they couldn't qualify to be at the White House because you got to be really sharp, on your toes, watch your P's and Q's, and have a college education or something. And that's what they were doing, is they were rotating some of those lowlifes out of the agency. And a lot of people don't get it. They think it's political. Oh, you worked under that president. No, I did not work under any president. They are protected by me. I don't work for the president.
Now,
See?
one thing I saw in that History Channel documentary, which this one was on the not just the Secret Service, but specifically Air Force One, is
Oh, yeah.
that
Good one.
the Air Force One, there's two of them. Wherever they go, they fill them both up with food, and they fly two of them wherever they go, and they land about 20 miles or so apart.
They told you that?
Oh, yeah. I was
Okay.
shocked. I was very shocked.
I'm sorry. Every time I see Air Force One, I've only seen one. So no. But I'm laughing. But I'm not denouncing it either. But I've seen
Well, it
Air
makes
Force One.
sense because you use the
It's
public one
huge.
for diversion.
True.
If in case
Yeah.
someone's going to shoot an RPG at it, and then
Right.
while all the cameras are focusing and taking pictures on that one, you land the other one with the POTUS in it somewhere
That's
else,
that's possible. But when
and then
I've seen
fly
it,
them over
it's
with a Marine One is what they say they do.
yeah, it's possible. But it's what I've seen of it. It's usually one. If they're doing it outside the country, it's
Yeah, that's
possible.
what it is. It's international.
Yeah, not domestic. So that's the difference. But those things are huge. Have you ever seen Air Force One
Well,
up close
I've
and
been to
personal?
the one at the Ronald Reagan Museum, which was the one
Totally
that
different.
Bush flew in. So that was what, a
Yeah,
737 or something?
yeah, they're
Not a
much bigger.
747. Yeah, they're
They're much
obviously much
much
bigger.
bigger. And
Yeah.
every time a new president comes in, they already want to do upgrades. And I think the
Well,
current administration,
Trump did already order a new one. As a matter of fact, when he was meeting with, I believe, Justin Trudeau on the desk, he had a model of what he just ordered from Boeing.
right? Well, originally he turned it down because he didn't want to cost the extra money for a new upgraded thing because maybe they didn't need it, but we don't know about the electronics. See, that's the point. The electronics are the upgrade and all the defense weapons and all the things that they got to have in there. And they have to provide the food for these people that are on board that Air Force One. Unfortunately, they take news media with them. They have certain people that they do a little poll and or a pool, as they call it, and they pull out certain names that get to go on Air Force One with the president. They have to be very respectful of that because technically they're traveling with him, and if something happens, they're going to stay with him, or they're going to hand him a parachute and kick him out,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
it's a joke.
like the movie Air Force One with Harrison Ford. They all
Good,
got out
good,
with
good,
parachutes.
good movie. I'm going to throw you way back to another movie called Escape from New York. Remember that one?
Yes.
Remember
I
that?
like
And
the
that
Escape
was,
from Los Angeles better, but yes, I do remember it. John Carpenter, right?
yes, John Carpenter, excellent producer,
And Blake and
director.
Brent Cousins from Third Phase of the Moon, one of the world's largest UFO YouTube channels, had won a John Carpenter Award for one
Yes,
of their
and then
films they made.
Kurt Russell was in that. But do you remember at the very beginning of the movie when the Air Force One was taken over by some alleged terrorists and they were flying Air Force One? Remember that? And there was an agent, O'Donnell Pleasance played the president, and one of the agents goes up and tries to bang his M16 on the door, which is a solid door It's a security door way before all this other BS that we've experienced since 9/11 type of crap. Do you remember that agent that was banging the door on there?
No,
The
no.
blonde, the
Tell me about it.
blonde-headed, the very handsome blonde-headed agent, clean-shaven,
Secret
eh,
Service agent was banging at the door of the cockpit?
with an M16 to say, "Yeah, I can't get in, Mr. President. We're going to have to get you into the pod or something."
Wow. Wow.
You don't remember that? That's the beginning.
Now the pod is something that the president can escape with from Air
Right. But
Force
I don't want
One.
to get to that. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to recall the agent who was not an agent. It was an actor, and a lot of people in your listening audience are probably jumping up and down. Oh, that was so and so. That was so and so. How could you not remember Dr. J? That was Steve Ford, one of the protectees that I actually protected at the White House.
Now, Mr. Carmen, there are two more questions for you. You know, people are
That's
definitely
all?
interested.
Just two?
No, just two back to back. First one is a super chat question, and it's two-headed Tasmanian. The question reads, any interesting stories to do with the Cold War, i.e. Soviet agents?
Yeah, sure.
Well, let's hear one.
Oh, okay. I protected Soviet personnel at the embassies. I've actually protected military attaché Russian embassy, which is actually right across and around the corner from the biggest Islamic temple in Washington, D.C., right off Belmont and some road named Kalorama Road. And right down that road is a new house for the Obamas. But that's a side issue we're getting into. But, oh yeah, Cold War stuff. I've been approached by alleged Russian agents, female, blonde, nice looking, in trench coats and nothing else. So why would they want to come up and entice me and stuff like that? So that's always going on. And all this BS about Russian collusion, toss it. That's left-wing Democrats, socialists, communists. It's BS. We have more connection to the Putin regime in a good way that we should keep good diplomatic relations. And I know people over there right now. I won't mention Steven Seagal, somebody I know personally. I won't mention Ed Snowden. He's over there, just to name a few. And I know some Russian nationals offhand. I actually protected a Russian KGB colonel by the name of Stanislav Lunev. Look him up. And if you go Wikipedia, that's not his photo, folks. Look him up, Stanislav Lunev, L-U-N-E-V. They've got some old guy up there that's dark-haired, semi-balding, and he's the wrong color. He's not Russian, blonde, slight mustache, and a little goatee. And this guy was great. He got a book published called Through the Eyes of the Enemy in 1998. I protected him on a referral from a guy named Chris Ruddy and a guy, George Putnam, out of Los Angeles, an icon in
George
radio.
Putnam. That's so familiar. I've interviewed.
Look him up. I've got pictures with him on my page, customscorruption.com, or go to page 2 and you'll see it. But anyway, I bodyguarded this guy. So he defected to the United States just during the fall, 1997, 98. I'm bad on my dates right now. And not all Russians are bad Russians. They're doing their job just like we would do ours. But, we dealt with defectors. We dealt with political asylees. They trained us at this stuff. So if a guy comes out of the Russian embassy and goes on the public sidewalk and says, Officer John or Agent John, I need political asylum, I have to whisk him away, get on the radio at the same time, and protect him and get him away from the building so he doesn't get assassinated or something. And as I say that, I'm saying those buildings are under the electronic surveillance of all kinds of 3 or 4 lettered agencies. And
4-letter agencies?
All of them.
So you're talking about like NASA, not 3-letter agencies.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that, but you're really good. You're sharp. You are sharp. Yes. Yes, them too. Why not?
Interesting.
Why not? Microwaves are microwaves, and one guy got sick because he got too much microwaves, but he didn't move around.
I might as well ask you this now.
Oh, ask me.
Okay, so you're aware of these DoD 3 UFO videos they've released, right?
Which one?
Specifically the USS Nimitz 2004. I don't remember
Oh, I've
where
seen
it
it.
was, but it was with Commander David Fravor chasing it. You seen it, right?
Oh, the one off the coast of California thing.
Was that what it could have been? California? It could have been.
Two years old.
No, 2004. There is a newer
Oh,
one. You're
oh,
right. There is a newer
that's
one
older.
on the East Coast actually, but there are two on the
I've
from the
I've
West
been I've
Coast.
been to Area 51 areas. I've been
Wait a
to
minute. Have you been
I've
to Area 51?
I've been there. I've lived on China Lake where they're having a lot of activity right now. They just had a jet
So
crash.
you've been to Groom Lake.
Yes. So what?
Wow. Okay. Did you
Not
ever
a big
make it
deal.
to S4?
It's the same basic area. It's just
Yeah,
an
yeah,
app.
it's 12 miles down in the Papoose.
Hey, wait a minute. Let me back up. I lived on China Lake. You know what that
That's
is?
in California. I know exactly where that is. Dr.
It's a
Roger Lear, he was
it's
a
a top
pilot.
secret. It's a top
It's a very
secret.
top secret, and he had an
How do you think
emergency
I could live on a base like that?
clearances and people you know in your job. But Dr. Roger Lear was flying a Cessna. He had an emergency and needed an emergency landing.
That sounds like the Art Bell
And he was
scam.
coming. No, this is for real. He
Oh, okay.
had to land at China Lake. There was nothing else.
You're
They would
kidding.
not give him the damn clearance. Now,
They should have
fortunately, he
shot him.
landed because he kept rocking his wings, which is the universal sign that hey,
That's
my plane is going down.
I've ridden with U.S. Customs in a chase plane, and we did the same thing when we chased people from the border that failed to stop because they said, "Oh, our carburetor was falling apart."
Now, Third Phase of Moon is asking the same thing. Tell us about Area 51.
Oh, well, let me back up. I used to do the Baker to Vegas run when I was with U.S. Customs in '91 to give you an idea when I was in really good shape. And I've also been through the Civil Air Patrol Academy at Edwards Air Force Base. I'm also familiar with the Holloman Air Force Base, aka Edwards Air Force Base, meeting between Eisenhower and some people from another planet or another dimension on a UFO. And two of the agents that were in the limousine belonged in the limousine later in 1963. There's a connection. There's a weird connection. I can't think of their names right now. I'm bad on names sometimes.
Now, did you fly into Area 51 via Janet airplane?
No,
Because anything else,
no,
you're going to get
no,
shot down.
no, and I can't.
Dreamland.
I'm not going to play this too far, but I can't discuss it
Well,
too much. I'm
everybody,
familiar. I'm
everybody in the
familiar with.
chat wants to know about Area 51. They want to know.
Really?
They're asking you. Said here in
Okay,
cap. This is in
Bob.
caps from Justin T.
Okay,
Please
okay.
tell us what you can about Area 51. Third Phase of Moon.
Send me money.
800,000 subscribers on YouTube. Okay,
Send
UFO
me
channel.
money. Listen,
Tell us about Area 51.
if
They
there's
fucking want to know about Area 51.
if there's 8,000 people, I want them to prove it because I need help. Tell them to send money to my Patreon page, and if that's $1 per person, I could survive for 3 months on $8,000. 3 months, maybe 4 months if I stretch it. But to go back to your request, because if they really are sincere,
They're very sincere. These people.
I've
They're
done
loyal
research for
people,
years since I
awesome
was
people.
a kid, before most of your people were even born. And the late 50s, early 60s, I had an interest in this stuff, but I didn't talk to people about it. We used to have a magazine, I think it was the UFO magazine or something years ago. Then there was another magazine after that. But I was not the type of kid that was going around buying them all the time. I didn't have that kind of money, and you couldn't mow enough lawns to, buy these things. And I was busy doing sports, staying straight, no drugs or dope or girls and smoking or drinking or whatever. I was training. I knew
Smart.
what I
That's
wanted
the
to
way to
do.
live. You're supposed,
Yeah,
that's what Trump has his kids do. Actually, as a matter of fact, not to deviate from the subject, we're going back to Area 51. But he told them, "Hey, look, I'll pay for your schooling, your housing,
Right,
everything,
right.
as long as you don't drink or smoke." He said, "And if you don't start, you don't have to worry about stopping." And that's
That's right.
brilliant advice from a parent.
I wish he could give me some money to support me on stuff I've done, but he doesn't get it yet. But that's another separate discussion. But I would like to direct people in another way by saying this. And I know Bob Lazar has a book that just came out, or a video.
A movie
Yeah,
on
book.
Netflix. It's called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. It's
Again.
produced by a friend of mine, Jeremy Kenyon Lockyer Corbell.
Oh, okay. Little plug for Bob Lazar. That's good. Now remember, when I look at people and I'm interviewing them, I'm looking at their eyes. I'm doing a special behavioral analysis technique. and I've got it down so much it's second nature to me. So I do it intentionally. I will look into their eyes. There's no deception in any regards that I've ever seen with Bob Lazar. Okay,
No, I've always believed the guy, and you know what? There's been a few things that have come out in the last 30 years that have actually proven his story to be far more credible than it is. But they make a good point in that. First of all, does he lie to his family? Does he lie to his wife? Does he lie to his mom? And also, he says, if if I made this up, don't you think I would have come up with a better lie?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, and that's a good comment too. There's another name that came up under another interview I was doing just last night. Was a guy named Emery Smith, and I know Emery. I've talked to him.
Hmm.
He's actually performed autopsies on over 300,000, if I get the numbers right. And I go, wait a minute, you've never done a whole body? I thought he did one. He said, well, no, he hasn't. And I said, oh, yeah, you did. Remember that little tiny thing that they got out of South America and they transported up there and said, oh, yeah, he forgot about that
Well,
one.
you're talking about Dr. Greer's serious
No,
Atacama
no,
alienoid?
no. Yeah, well, yeah, I am. But I have also interviewed with Dr. Stephen Greer face to face, hand touching, type shaking distance. Had lunch with him in San Diego a couple of years ago after they were having Comic-Con or something, which was a timing, because people were recognizing him. So I don't know if he was there for something. He may have been there for something else. So, but no deception, but I still see issues with certain people. But Bob Lazar, 100%. Emery Smith, pretty damn close to the same thing.
Well, I thought Emery Smith talks more about being involved in, say, teleportation.
No, he's talking about actually doing autopsies on aliens and alien parts that they've given him so that he can actually do the proper procedures and protocols so that they can look at the DNA and all those other things. Because the alien presence in this planet is not what we think it is, and it's in different dimensions, and we're just a giant shopping cart for them. They came here. We were developed by aliens. We're different backgrounds and DNA. There was a guy who actually had something published on a YouTube who worked at Area 51, or still does, if he's still alive, that he says he's sorry he knew what he knew now because it's not what he was raised to believe, type of thing. They go, well, that's understandable. But if you look at the Lacerda interview on YouTube, I recommend people look at that. There's a couple of variances of it, and I've got one that's about 2 hours. But people need to look at it, take notes, and go back over the notes, give it a couple of days, take a rest, and do it again later, and they'll catch something new that they passed over or missed.
No, people still are asking. Okay,
there's a connection with that. Thomas Edwin Costello and Phil Snyder, who both
Phil Schneider at Dulce Air Force Base.
Both were killed in '96. Who was president that year?
Clinton.
There you go. And I had some problems with their administration same year. But go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, this is a super chat question. Two-headed death Tasmanian. Does Bob Lazar's story make sense to him, meaning his description of the site?
Yes.
So you're telling me that the mountain at the Papoose Dry Lake bed was carved out, hollowed out, and then that's where the hangar doors were that were painted with sand to blend in from, say, radar and things like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to analyze the question because sometimes people don't understand.
Bob Lazar was specific to S4. Every time he flew into Area 51, he immediately got off Janet Airline and he got right into a bus with blacked out windows and drove the, 20-some minutes, whatever it took, to get 15, 17 miles south to Papoose Dry Lake Bed. But he said that there were 9 hangars. And I'm sure there's underground from another guard who came out. I don't remember his name. Derek something, I think is his alias. He was in a documentary in 91 or so called Dreamland.
Right.
And he actually corroborated some of Bob Lazar's story, but more importantly, he was a sentry guard for the second or third level. And he talked about even more craft there, but more importantly, there were tubes with liquid that were housing alien bodies. Now,
Right.
did you see any of this stuff?
No. I couldn't tell you that if I did, so that kind of screws up my no answer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It sure does. So
They're asking over, above, and above, beyond. But what I'll tell you is this: is that Eisenhower did visit that particular location.
didn't Eisenhower also visit in 1954?
51.
No. I said 54. He went to.
I said 51, but go
Okay,
ahead.
okay. Edwards Air Force, which was at the time Muroc
Yes.
Airfield, and met with 3 different species, and they were supposed to sign a treaty for.
Yes.
So you're saying it was 51, not 54.
I'm going to say 51 again. So whoever said 54 is full of shit. They don't know what they're passing on.
Interesting.
Reference, UFOcrashbook.com by Art Campbell. I know him.
Huh. Okay. Wow.
Again.
You know what? You're blowing my fucking mind, because we're not just talking about Secret Service and the presidents here. We're going full blown into what's going on with UFOs.
Well, test
This
me.
is great, because people
but-
love this shit.
Because
And so do
I don't want to pass over the part about Bob Lazar getting on the same aircraft that the windows were blacked out before he landed. I don't like flying on planes and having windows blacked out.
Okay.
At all.
Tell us about that.
It's very
So
uncomfortable.
Janet Airlines, you're saying,
Yes.
is blacked out windows.
They're blacked out, so even when he gets on a plane from the other location, like say in Las
McCarran
Vegas.
International Airport Special Projects EG&G at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, there you go. And then they land. It's a big game, and they do all this stuff. You know, I mean, if somebody intentionally wanted to try to circumvent certain procedures, they would get caught eventually anyway, and then something would happen to them. Some of the jobs that they held, like at Dulce, New Mexico, referenced the Lacerda interview with Thomas Edwin Costello, also separate interview. They'll ask you, well, do you have any family left over? No, I don't. Do you have any connections to the outside world? No. Oh, you're hired then. We want somebody exactly like that. So if something happens to you, or the reptilian guy gets hungry one day, then they don't have to answer questions. Okay, I just told you a mouthful, and it's factual. So that's pretty scary, and I'm claustrophobic. I don't think I'd want to work underground to the 7th level just because they trust me and all this other stuff. Don't go into caves where you have that symbol of the snake, which is actually a reptilian thing biting its tail.
Really? Interesting.
And it has.
You're talking about that circular pattern, which means the snake eats itself?
Kinda, and it also has what we
like
call
it's
the Big Dipper.
eating its tail.
Yeah, but that's the emblem. But it has. I have it off the internet. I had it posted on my Facebook not too long ago. See, I throw hints out there all the time to intelligent people if they're watching. But you know what the Big Dipper looks like, right?
Uh-huh.
It's got the 4 plus the 3. That's 7-star pattern of the Pleiades, which is where these people supposedly come from, or these aliens or reptilians. And if you ever go into a cave that's not properly camouflaged, I'll use that word, and you see that, you're supposed to turn around and go the other way, or you'll be lunch in so many minutes, type of thing.
Now, here's another question from Third Phase of Moon. Like I said, one of the world's largest UFO YouTube channels, Blake and Brent Cousins. Can the agent confirm how many countries are involved with Area 51? Also, how many stories below ground does Area 51 go?
That's a good question. See, my brain is going off like 1,000 different directions. For right now, it's just our country in the United States.
Now,
and
Bob
maybe
Lazar
aliens
did say that in the 80s there were commies there, meaning real communist Soviets.
Well, you're talking about if we go back to the Germans, like Werner von Braun. Mm-hmm. Technically, those were Nazis and stuff like that. And I still have problems, just between me and you and whoever's listening, dealing with Hitler had contact with the UFOs. Oh my God, that's going to screw up my mental theories on some things, because, you know, the Brotherhood of the Bell and all these other things. But I've read the books on that stuff, and I go, well, it's possible. And if he had the technology, they could have won the war, but there's all these indicators, and he escaped to
Argentina.
Argentina.
Yeah.
And how far away is Suderland, Antarctica, where the whites are, the great whites or the tall whites that Obama was sharing with a few people? Yeah, but as far as other
Well,
nations,
another guest put it to me this way. He
yeah,
said, if during World War II or beginning or after World War I, before World War II, say in the late 30s, you were coming into this world from, from the sky up above, where would you go? And what he suggested, wouldn't you visit Nazi Germany because they're preparing this massive world invasion and they have this massive military buildup? That's what he suggested. And then there also are stories that no one can confirm that I know of, that there was a crash and retrieval at the Black Forest in Berlin or wherever near Berlin in Germany in 1936. So
right.
that's where he allegedly
Well,
had the technology.
right. Well, technically, I think that's possible that they did have something like that, because if they had contact before the alleged 47 Roswell incident, then they could have been a few years ahead of us, but that would have been way before 1945. But I'm familiar with other research that I've done because I'm into research. I'm a historian. I get into that. So Himmler and the sacred castle at Velvesberg and the the spear of Longinus, the spear that pierced the side of Christ, and all these other things, and all this other religious
Yeah,
stuff. And
didn't he have possession of that spear?
oh yeah, yeah, and to this day, these people are acting like, well, if you were that smart and you wanted to possess it, and you used to sit there and watch and look at it for hours at the Austrian Museum when he was younger, because he was into that. He was like an artist, and he was into this sort of thing. He would sit there and just be mesmerized by it because of the power involved in this thing. Because if it did pierce the side of Christ, it had the blood and the DNA, and it was possessed by other people. And anybody who possessed it, allegedly to the background of it, I'm flubbing on my words right now. The theory behind it was that any army that had that is like having the Ark of the Covenant, would be powerful and invincible, and could overtake any army. What makes you think he didn't get one made and had a replica made and kept the
Very
original?
good point. Yeah, of
What
course.
makes you
Just
think
switch
he's
it
not?
out. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because then the Third Army under Patton, as soon as they discovered it, the theory is that as soon as they found it, which was hidden in a cave somewhere, because by that time Hitler had already escaped, that's allegedly when he killed himself in April 1945 or whatever it was. And that's all been proven fake. Okay, so he didn't kill himself.
So
So,
back to Blake and Brent's question.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we know the Soviets were there. Now
Right.
were the Nazis. Okay, how many other countries knew about Area 51 and were actually present there during some of the experiments, or to get a different perspective as to how to analyze, as Bob Lazar says, if we only had that one answer as to
Right.
how that device worked, the world would change for the better.
Well, they know how it works basically,
Well, they
and,
know
and
how
a
it
lot.
works, but they don't know how to replicate it
Well,
using
right,
Earth's
because
materials.
those items are alive. Remember the movie, the Independence Day movie?
Yes.
Remember when those things came alive or activated?
Yeah, the one at Area 51 started acting up when the mothership, the others started coming in Earth.
They're actual bio. Uh, I'm losing my term again. Bio.
Robots, glorified
Well, no, no,
robots.
no,
I know they from what.
they're biological type machines, but they're connected to the DNA of the person or the alien entity that's inside them.
I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that
That's
they
a Hangar 18
operate
connection.
via telepathy.
Right. Well, that's a Hangar 18 movie connection. Is that, let's say I have a saucer built for me. It's one piece. It's
Mm-hmm.
solid. If you've watched any of the Bob Lazar stuff, where he actually draws the diagrams and shows where the oh the
Element 115.
the U-235, 238, whatever plutonium, polonium level, I forgot what it was this week. that material. So they shave it off, they purify it.
You tell them element 115.
Yeah, well, no, it's higher than that. It's much higher than that. And that's the one that has a alleged half-life. There's another lie by the government for 1,000,000 years, which means they could use that indefinitely.
Well,
They've already got.
what Lazar said is that it's been theorized since the 60s that somewhere in the 115, 116, 117 range, there exists the island of stability. And
Right.
each atomic or each element on the chart does have different isotopes. For instance, he mentions hydrogen has,
Right.
3, for instance, right?
Yeah.
There's cesium has 30. What the Germans and the Russians in Germany, what they did in, I believe, 2004 was synthesize, I believe, 4 atoms, but it was the unstable version. What Bob Lazar says is just like you said much further than that. He says, we also know that somewhere later down the chart that there is the island of stability again. But the point being is he keeps talking about element 115, unless that's, of course, something live. But I don't think he's lying.
That's inconsequential. What I'm trying to tell you is that they have established basically that's just a starter motor. That's all it is. Once they start it up and get the electromagnetics working on that craft, they can travel faster than the speed of light. They can bend space. They can go interdimensional while we're sitting here breathing. And in between heartbeats, they've already traveled somewhere.
Yeah.
They are walking around us and among us right now, interdimensionally, because they are of a different being, different light being, stuff like that. But this interdimensional travel is like, if let's say I go up to a machine that they made for me specifically, or whoever, I go up and I touch it, it recognizes my DNA. I will be allowed to go inside of it, operate it, sit in it, do whatever, and travel. But what's interesting is he made notes of this. Is did you notice they don't have any restrooms or a bathroom or whatever?
That's right.
That's because they're traveling so fast, they don't have time to go to the bathroom. No, I'm being funny. They're traveling so fast that it doesn't even get to the point where you have to worry about that because they're busy traveling so fast that you're bypassing normal organ function up to a point. Now, then that gets into another discussion about the droids that they use, the grays that are not like us. There's a lot of beings out there that are not like us, but people don't understand. They're just talking in 3, 4, or less dimensional type things, whereas opposed there are hundreds or more. It's like looking at the light spectrum. You know the light spectrum.
Yes.
We deal with the one in the middle that's about 2 inches wide or long. From the ultraviolet to the high frequencies, and then beyond that you can't see it because it's too high speed, right?
Even a camera can pick up a little more than we can.
Correct. If you take pictures of just the sky, like if I peeked out my apartment where the commercial lane is, where the commercial flights might go through, you see an aircraft. Well, to me, it looks like an aircraft. But if you flick a high-speed camera, not knowing, like if you're over there at 51 or one of these other places, you may catch a little glimpse of something you're not supposed to see. Like they took a picture at China Lake, by the way, years ago. And it got released, and I posted it. And the guy that had access to it, he's never responded. So he's scared, I guess. But there's stuff out there that nobody understands, and it does blink in and out because they own the dimension. They're fastly traveling at thousands of years in advance of us, and we're sitting here trying to get rid of the fossil fuels, and these idiots that we've got in Congress and the Senate are in control by other people with money. So as long as they're in control, we're not going to advance. We're not going to be able to get rid of fossil fuels and all the stuff that makes people sick and all these other things. In fact, it was the visit to Arlington and Eisenhower during another time that some other guy was vice president. I won't mention his name just yet. Valiant Thor. Have you guys ever mentioned Valiant Thor?
The E.T., the human-looking E.T. that was in the Pentagon.
Yeah, and I'm still confused because they showed 2 different pictures. One guy has dark hair, another one has blondish hair, and he looks like some guy from Sweden or Norway or something, or an actor I've seen. But he supposedly presented Eisenhower with a package of information or booklets. And here, I will give you free energy, free water, free food for everybody if you follow these procedures and whatever. And you take a look at it. And they made him or let him stay in a suite, if you want to call it that, over at the Pentagon for 2 or 3 years. And I'm thinking, it sounds like he was pretty much confined. In 1951, again, that's the same year that they released that movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still, with Michael Rennie, 1951. Look that up. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've only seen the current version, not the first.
You need to watch the first one, 1951. So anyway, this guy, or Eisenhower, puts him off. Do you remember who the vice president was when Eisenhower was president at that time?
No.
Some guy named Richard.
Dewey? No.
That's one guess. Richard.
Nixon! Duh! I can't believe I forgot this. Nixon!
Milhouse Nixon.
Richard Milhouse Nixon was the VP during the Eisenhower administration.
Think about it.
Then he lost to Kennedy.
Think about it.
Then he won.
Vice President is head of all the intelligence agencies for the president. He is the conduit to the president, basically.
That's why he brought Jackie Gleason to see bodies at the Blue Room at Red. Now to the moon, Alice. Now there are several questions that are building up. Again, this is going to go. These are some out of order, but I'll get to them.
Hopefully, we're getting different people because you need to restrict so many questions per guest, sort of.
I want to ask you about J-Rod.
Make them pay for it. Yes, I've heard of J-Rod. I know the story.
Okay, well, what can you tell us about J-Rod?
Well, J-Rod kind of connects to my little connection to Emery Smith, because Emery Smith also fits the same category because he was similarly doing something for J-Rod, who was stuck here, and his spacecraft, whatever, was broken. He was from the Pleiades. They were studying him. They were taking samples, DNA samples. They were feeding him whatever he had to be fed so that he could survive in our atmosphere, and they had him in a special confined area so that people wouldn't get mixed, contaminated, and or we wouldn't hurt him. He was telepathic, before I forget, and at one point, I can't remember the other guy's name, but he had to wear a spacesuit. He had to strip down, he had to be sanitized before he could even get into the spacesuit, so he could go in there, communicate, and J-Rod supposedly made him go through a procedure of reciting something. And I couldn't remember the deal because it's been a couple of years since I even looked at that again.
Are you talking about Dan Burrish?
I know that name.
Is that the guy?
Yeah, maybe.
That's the guy who said he worked with J-Rod.
Yeah. It might be.
That spacesuit came inside and all that.
Yeah, it might be. I just can't remember the name right now. But, he had to go through the whole procedure, and then after he went through the procedure, but telepathically, he was communicating back and forth, and he needed to get out. He needed to go back home. They needed to fix his craft so he could get back, because he left family back somewhere else. And we're basically holding him prisoner. Now, I don't think that's right, that we hold anybody prisoner just to study them and go, yeah, we're going to hold on to them and do whatever, just like they did in another movie. That's wrong. That's so wrong and against our principles. They're much more powerful and advanced than us, that if they kept doing that shit, they could do some serious damage if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Which I'm surprised, because if you realize all the protocols, if it's the Dan Burrish character, and I know you're probably correct because that name does sound familiar, if they did go through the protocols properly, J-Rod had enough mental capacities, he could do certain things, but you still don't know what we were feeding him either. Maybe they kept him at a minimal.
Yeah, that's why they said he had neuropathy and other problems.
Exactly. So if they did that, then it's no different than the famous Alien interview where we're holding on to these guys, and they allegedly smuggled out an encrypted video by ONI out of Area 51 or something, which I've seen many times.
The video, you mean, where the alien is behind a glass, supposedly with a telepath behind the camera, trying to interview him, and then at some point, people with surgical masks come in and start shining lights in his eyes, etc.
Let me discount that one. I think that one was a fraud.
Mm-hmm.
It was the one that they came up with later with the really nasty-looking alien guy. That looked real, you see. The eyes that blinked a certain way and certain reactions. The first one, I'll critique it like this. Whoever the alleged government agent, DOD or otherwise, who was asking the stupid questions, they were not proper questions that I would have asked. I mean, even the follow-up guy, similar stupid questions, which is there a God, or have you seen God, or whatever? And this guy said, well, that perception is way off from what you can understand. The guy answered, or the alien answered, but the problem is this guy's not a professional that knew what type of proper questions to ask. So you don't know if it was at the beginning, the middle, or the end of whatever situation. But I would have asked them differently. I would have dissected questions very carefully and asked certain things.
No.
These aliens are not all God-fearing people with spirits or not, but maybe they are or not. See?
Here's another one for you.
Go ahead.
Do you know Daryl Sims?
Yes, I do. Next question.
Okay. What
do you want to know about Daryl?
Rockstar. How important is H3 to us? H3, I'm curious if it's helium-3, but maybe you know.
That's what I was wondering. Is he talking about the chemical composition of the H3? God, I haven't looked at that periodic table in years. What is H3? It's hydrogen 3. We're operating on H1 or H2, but H3, isn't that in the restricted area?
Well, I would think if that's the radioactive one, then that's what.
Yeah, if it's restricted,
bombs.
what's the point of the question? What is it they really want to know? Just ask what they really want to know.
Oh, you said it, so they'll he'll hear it. They'll hear it. Okay.
Yeah.
Chad Dentant. What about antimatter weapons?
What about them?
What can you tell us? Do they exist? Do we know?
Yes.
Do we use them?
Well, you know about the CERN project, correct?
Yeah, in Switzerland.
Okay, and I'm going to qualify my answer, of course. I'm not a rocket scientist, never professed to be. I'm just a well-educated, highly trained person who does research, and I get into this stuff like you guys do in a different way. Mm-hmm. But antimatter. Supposedly, it's like, did you guys see the Da Vinci Code movie or the follow-up movie?
Yeah, Angels and Demons.
Yeah. At some point, you have to understand that you can have matter, but you can't have antimatter, because if you do, it causes a super-duper explosion or ripping the whole time thing and all this other stuff. And aliens are not going to let that happen. They'll intervene, and they'll shut down NORAD. They've done it before. So I believe they have electromagnetic type of weapons. I believe they've been using them recently at China Lake, which is causing some problems with the earthquakes and stuff. Mm-hmm. The bees that were dying off, which is not a good excuse. It's like HAARP doing their thing over in the ocean, which there's aliens in the ocean. And they have bases down there. And we don't need to harm the dolphins and the whales. They need to back that off. And yet our government is doing these low-tone frequencies.
I know, unfortunately, there still exists whale hunters, but overall, right. I believe every country has banned it. Maybe not countries like Somalia or countries that Japan. I thought they made it illegal. Do they? It's still legal?
No, they're allowed to have a certain amount of kill ratios in case they accidentally catch them with their one fish that they were supposedly going after.
Interesting. Wow.
Kind of a sarcastic.
What a loophole! Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, but I've lived in Japan. I don't think I would feel comfortable eating dolphin or whale, unless you were starved in the tundric north somewhere with Eskimos, and one fell dead, and you happen to have a knife. You're hungry. But
now this is
anyway. I went off subject there a little bit.
It's okay.
That's a real high-tech question, and again, I'm not a scientist, but it's real technical, and I don't know how to answer it without getting into some other areas there, because That's something we don't want to do. I mean, they've got hydrogen bombs. They've got bombs that can destroy life and suck the energy out of everything and still leave buildings standing. And yet they've got other things out there that could destroy life on the whole planet. But the aliens don't want that to happen because,
Well, I figured if the aliens really want is just release a virus.
well, they are experimenting with stuff all the time about this. It's like, well, what did they do this week? Oh, the Ebola thing, right? And then all of a sudden we're letting all these.
Zaire, yeah.
Yeah, we're letting all these Africans come into our country who are immune to it because they've built up an immunity, just like saying, well, we're going to give you a tetanus shot. Are you giving me a live virus? Oh, no, it's negative. We're not giving you a live virus, but, or the mercury stuff in the shots or whatever. So there's got to be something wrong with that picture if they have to shoot something into our system because our DNA is built differently, like the God DNA. Like Jesus supposedly had one Y chromosome, and he had 23 X chromosomes from the Palestinian female Mary.
Huh.
And that's other research I've done too.
Wow.
So if you go, that's interesting because that was blood that was taken from the Ark of the Covenant, scraped off in a cave just below the Golgotha rock by Ron Wyatt, who had it tested. And he had some Israeli scientists mix the blood with water, distilled or otherwise, and they asked what it was, and he didn't want to tell them. He said, just do it, activate it, do whatever, look at it in the microscope, and it came back to life because you cannot destroy that blood and that life thing. If you or I bled, if we're human, then it's going to dry up and die, and you can't reconstitute it.
Okay, let me ask the other questions here.
Go ahead.
Is it true they burned unused chemicals at Area 51 causing major illnesses amongst workers?
Unused?
Yeah. Okay,
Like,
even if you remove the word unused, is it true they burned chemicals?
Chemicals.
Yeah.
I couldn't really speak on that specifically because that's kind of a crazy question.
I do know that there was a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit of employees there that were harmed,
got sick
by burning. Yeah.
But if they were disposing of chemicals of some sort that's properly disposed of, it sounds like it's an OSHA type of a accident where somebody screwed up, they didn't destroy it or flush it down the tube or flush it right or something, or if it was kerosene, they didn't separate it and then cart it off like they did radioactive material. What they used to do years ago is bury it in the desert over in Arizona where John Ford would do movies and have Western movies. And all the people that went to that movie and participated in it ended up getting cancer and that kind of thing, kind of like procedure. So I'm not familiar with that. I'm surprised it wasn't covered up because if it's on Area 51 property, they're going to cover it up.
Okay. Let's see here. Do you know who Charles Hall is, and have you ever visited, I believe it's Area 54? Indian Springs? The tall whites are?
That sounds familiar, but Area 54 I'm not familiar with, or at least I don't remember recently. Charles Hall, I'm not sure about him. Is he another whistleblower or something?
Yes, he is. He worked at it was either Area 52 or 54, I believe 54. I'm not sure. Someone maybe can confirm this for me. But Charles Hall, he used to, do the weather every morning with weather balloons. And so on the base also lived the tall whites, and he wrote a few books about it. He seems like a credible person, but of course I can't verify his story.
I've never heard that tall whites live anywhere except at the Antarctica location where they found bodies. And I'm familiar with the Kandahar giant case. That's another discussion.
We talked about that on the show before. I've actually had one of the guys who was involved, that was involved in killing the damn thing. He said that 12 people or so were killed. They were just grabbed by this giant and torn in half. But this poses another question. So you got the Kandahar giant incident. We know that there are giant skulls and skeletons, so that would imply that there's a lot more giants.
Oh yeah, if somebody were to just ask me blatant questions, do you believe they exist? Yes, next question. Do UFOs exist? Yes, next question. I mean, come on, give me a hard question, you know. They
Okay,
don't
here's one.
get that. We're still dealing in lower levels from other people still to this day. Like Stephen Greer is talking about stuff. Yeah, there's going to be disclosure. There's going to be disclosure. Look, I've been studying this stuff for years as a hobby on the side when I got bored. And you know how many midnights I used to stand out there at the White House on a midnight shift going, okay, if it's going to happen, do it now. John Carmen's here. Do it now, right?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Now
Nothing.
here's a question for you, but we have to really dance around it, John. I'll tell
Go
you
ahead.
why.
Dance
Because
away.
YouTube is gonna fucking demonetize this video as they did the last time I did a whole interview
Oh,
on
I
this
see.
topic. So
Right.
I'm gonna ask it without saying specifically where it is. Do you think there were special weapons used to take down the blank towers
Um,
18 years ago?
no,
September?
no, not special weapons.
Okay.
The
Okay.
towers, and I've investigated this as an EOD specialist because I was still right out of U.S. Customs. I was EOD, the masked Metro Ocean Strike Team. We discussed the building, the Murrah building in Oklahoma City in '95.
Yes.
It's the same thing. Somebody got inside, they put thermite charges throughout the structure, and they imploded it just like they do on demolitions.
It's ironic because the guest that she was a stewardess, Rebecca Roth, I'm finishing her book
Uh
to bring her
huh.
back.
Uh huh.
They found that dust that everyone was covered of, that really fine gray
Right.
dust,
Yep.
had nanothermite particles in it.
What, can I say duh right now
Go ahead. Yeah.
and roll my eyes left and right? Duh.
Well, it sounds
People
like
are
you're.
so people are so damn stupid, and then I keep hearing this stuff. For 30 years, the Israelis that had that restaurant on the building were told not to go to work that day, and they did
Well, it
for
wasn't just
something.
them; it was other
Yeah, yeah,
CEOs.
yeah, yeah. There was a lot of interesting people, but then you got some other idiots out there. Saw some guys dancing up and down at a parking structure blocks away, like wow, up and down, blah blah blah, and somebody says, "Oh, that's the Mossad."
Yeah,
Really,
yeah. Weren't they involved in some way?
really. I'm rolling my eyes again. Really? No, come on. Mossad does not do that, and they're not going to attack U.S. interests. In fact, I just saw something today. I won't say what source that confirms, if not all of the stuff that's been going on. It really pisses me off. Is false flag stuff.
But
That's
why did people see Mossad agents around the
because
area
well
in
they did
weeks
they
leading
did
up to it?
no they didn't see real Mossad agents because you don't see them.
It's true. Very good point. That
They're
very
not
good
going
point.
to they're
They're
not
not
going
going
to
to
be out there.
announce that they're Mossad agents walking around the street,
They're,
wearing a
and,
badge or a jacket that
or
says
or
Mossad.
waving the Star of David flag on top of a building.
Yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. All right.
They're so stupid.
Here's
It's just
another one
people are
for you.
just. But go ahead, go ahead.
Do you
Oh wait,
think?
wait, wait. No, no. Let me throw one in. Did you remember seeing the movie 3 Days of the Condor?
No.
See, I need you guys to look at that because you'll see the actual buildings in '73, '74 when that was active, and I saw the same actors were doing the movie. In fact, I know one of the actors that was in 3 Days of the Condor. I'm still in touch with him because he's a martial arts guy like myself, and he was in that opening scene with Robert Redford. So 3 Days of the Condor, ex-CIA or CIA guy, and they showed the Twin Towers back then. And if you watch some other movies that Spielberg did, it was either not Munich or another movie about the follow-ups where the Mossad did go after the Munich massacre guys that killed all the Israeli athletes in '72. Then they show the New York scene with the Twin Towers in the background, kind of like a closing scene thing. And I go, that's pretty eerie. You know what I mean?
Very,
So,
very. I would
yeah,
say so.
yeah. But there's a connection. I mean, I watch these movies for a reason, and I hold on to them mentally because there's other messages coming out of them that other people don't pick up on. So,
Last shot, I could answer your question. Demonetization is the answer. Okay, that's my reason, at least why. Otherwise, I
oh
have
yeah, yeah.
no problem talking about it. All
Yeah.
right, let me find something. I had a little glitch here where I
Oh
lost
no,
my
I love this. This is good. I
phone.
like question and answer sessions because some other people that have done interviews with in the past, and I'm an ex-cop and a Fed. If anybody has any doubts of my capabilities, they don't have any understanding of the background because I can sit here and do this all day long because I will tell you what I know and what I can tell you. And I've dealt with human beings for a long time, and I've dealt with millions of them, not just a couple 100,000. I'm talking about millions, and nobody can fathom that.
Now, do you think the military wants to get a hold of giant DNA in order to create a super soldier?
I've heard that one. I could say, yeah, possibly, but if you're going back to the Atlantis type stuff where they did do stuff years and years, well, thousands of years ago, then the purpose of doing the DNA, if you could think about it, it's like another Jurassic Park scenario. And they just found the horse that was in the plains or someplace, the tundra plains of the Arctic Circle or someplace. And I go, well, yeah, they could do that. They've got the woolly mammoth, the narwhal, the unicorn. You know, those are all fantasy things, which are nice and interesting. I don't mean fantasy in a bad way. I mean fantasy like we just can't whip them up and show them, hey, here's a narwhal or here's a unicorn at the zoo. I believe they do exist and that they have existed. Leprechauns, fairies, you name it. Every one of these things exists. We have interdimensional stuff. They exist. But for them to come back and go, yeah, let's do this. We'll get the DNA of Jesus and bring him back. Maybe he could perform miracles or something. Maybe.
It's true. It's true.
Fix our DNA. There's a problem with our DNA. We were specifically designed to fall apart and die by the age of 75 to 100, basically. We're supposed to be indeterminate beings living forever, but yet they put stuff in our DNA to fall apart. So our genomes, our telomeres fall apart. So it's like a burning fuse. So if we don't take care of ourselves and eat proper foods and energy and eat stuff for our cannabinoid receptors, THC and stuff like that, I'm doing research, that, yeah, people get sick, they die, and whatever. I've had 3 heart attacks, 4 stents. I've got some health issues that are too bad. But other guys that I used to know and work with, they had 1 heart attack, they're gone. Period.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Before I get to this David Lord's question, hang tight. Let me ask Russell Grant's question.
Tracy Lords, what?
No. One day I'll get her on this. And by the way, I promised everybody Roger Stone, he will not be doing any interviews quite yet until he prefers me to set up an event for him. So I did promise you all him, and it will happen
God
again,
bless
but
Roger
not now.
Stone.
Yeah, amen. I gave him a new nickname. Instead of the Dirty Trickster, I call him the coolest cat who's ever walked this earth. You know, the maker of fucking kings. All right, here. Let's see where I can find this here. The first question. Okay. This probably too is going to demonetize, but oh well. People are showing their support. Have you seen or do you know any of the people that have gone to Epstein Island or they're not going, I don't think anymore if he's locked up.
Knowingly?
Yeah.
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, that's a deep question. I'd have to sit here and go, okay, starting back, let's see, the Clintons.
There's records that Bill went
the
26
Clintons,
times, Prince Andrew went.
That they know of. Now, let me explain Secret Service on the same subject. This is what bothers me about the Secret Service, and they're going to be pissed off that I might even say it. But everywhere the president goes, they keep a record of it. How many agents, how many whatevers, and the names of the agents, and so on and so forth, no matter what. And if somebody gets on the plane who's a guest, who was background checked by Gary Aldrich, for instance, he did a book, ex-FBI and all that. I've met him. I know him. Other whistleblowers wait till they do a book and get out and get their retirement. I don't. I just go ahead and expose it right away because that's my friggin' job. But
No, hey, that's why I'm glad of all
Right.
Secret Service retired Secret Service agents. You're the one I'm talking to because you're answering a lot more questions, and you're not just limiting the scope. For instance, when I
Yeah.
talked to people from the FBI, the scope was FBI. They didn't even want to talk about their old boss Comey, and I was like, hold on a minute, the guy just got
Comey,
fucking fired, you know.
Comey should be in jail and
Well, what?
wearing
Well,
orange
okay.
and get
Before I ask these other questions, since we're already kind of screwed in that
Oh,
sense.
but let me go back to the procedural thing. So that let's say the Secret Service goes out there. Somebody asked a similar question, like, "Well, what if he goes out to that island, which is BS? That's not the actual island. He had another island, where they had the pizza delivery thing on the boat and stuff like that. That guy's got so much money he could buy an island you wouldn't even know about it, and they're claiming that's where he went. That's what they want you to know in the media. So either way, if the president decides, well, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go swimming, or let's say he goes to San Diego and he lands at North Island and they drive down the street, which is a quarter of a mile or less, to the Hotel Del. They've got to have Secret Service there waiting ahead of time. They've got to have Secret Service at the beach surrounding the building. I've been there. I've gone inside. I took a female agent with me one day that wanted to go see what it was like. And I got to see Bill and Hillary less than 20 feet away, that type of thing.
Wow.
But that's because I know how to get in. I know how to go in there, and I had a badge at the time. But point is, if he wants to go out there and go skinny dipping right off the beach, there better be an agent ready to jump in. They better have the SEAL Team 6 out there in the water with a submarine nearby, and the whole area is already blocked off and scanned, and there better be F-18s flying above the area, and it's a no-fly zone. I mean, there's so much preparation for last-minute stuff. It's like this guy from Kenya, the lying Muslim bastard, that decides he wants to go out and get a hamburger. Then they have to drop what they're doing and go by his lead. If Nixon wanted to walk out of the White House, this was his actual story told me by a superior that I used him as a mentor. He was a nice guy from New York, and he was really sarcastic, which is how I learned sarcasm 101. He'd say, "Yeah," he'd come around with a glass of scotch, and if he walked out drunk to the gate and said, "Open the goddamn gate," then they would have to do it. But you better grab an Uzi, you better have your radio anyway, and on top of your other guns and stuff, and start walking with it, because he's the president, god damn it, and that's it. He's the commander in chief, and if he's getting claustrophobic, he needs to get the flock out of there, FLOCK, then you let him out, but you got to get everybody in tow and get the cars running, and all the agents are running, and everybody else is out there blocking the streets. You better be calling the DC police to do stuff. It's horrendous. But now it's changed a little bit because of the way they've restructured the access to Pennsylvania Avenue now and stuff like that, where I used to actually patrol and do all kinds of cool stuff.
I see. They changed the website where it used to, on the whitehouse.gov, where there was a page that said, call the president. Yeah, like you could ever speak to him. I've tried that myself. Just friends didn't believe me that you can call the White House no matter what time of the hour. The switchboard's going to answer.
Well, sure, I could call right now and do stuff. I used to call the guy at one of the posts because I had the number, and I'd call him up and say, "What are you doing, man? Hey, who's this?" "Well, this is your buddy John, man. How's it going out there?" "Oh, shit, I can't talk to you right now. I'm busy. Blah, blah, blah." "Okay, well, get back to work. Call me later," or something, But that's in-house between other people that work there type of stuff. But there's certain posts you don't want to just bug him and call, because if it's late at night, you don't want certain things going on. But that's kind of another tangent. But anyway,
we got some more questions, and we're going to run out of time. So I'm just going to try to keep going here,
or take a 2-minute break in a few seconds.
No, don't worry, because we'll be off in 15 minutes anyway. What about UFO technologies? What do you know about them? You already said they're real. Okay, a lot. Okay, next, I guess I'll get to the next one. Why have you ever known of a UFO that was seen from Air Force One by the president, or maybe chasing Air Force One, or anything like that?
I'm trying to think. That's a really good question. I seem to remember something, but I don't.
No, there's no alliance or anything like that, or the Secret Service in generally knowing about UFOs, but not just knowing or meeting ETs or anything like that, right?
Not officially. I mean, I know stuff because I know stuff on my own, and I've done my own research, stuff like that. But again, I'm going to refer you back to the alleged treaties, which I do believe existed since Truman. And that goes back to Art Campbell and his UFOcrashbook.com thing about the meeting at Holloman or Edwards or where it was that week. And every new president allegedly has to sign a treaty with these aliens. And I've got other sources that are Air Force generals that have passed on. And I've talked to their widows, and they've confirmed that we have ambassadors from other planets like Venus. And people say, yeah, but Venus is incapable with standing or withholding life as we know it, blah, blah, blah. That's because we're being lied to by NASA. But I bet everybody
Never
thinks
a straight answer, NASA.
And I bet you all of the biology and the science stuff that you learned in school teaches you that a molecule has hydrogen and helium and oxygen and carbon and up to a point, but it's not the way it's built. It's not the way we know it.
Okay, let's see what else I could find.
I know a lot more science stuff at a certain level, but if you take the strand of silk out of a silkworm or a spider's web, the molecules are lined up so perfectly. That's what makes it so strong. So allegedly, that's how they have the ability to create stuff that is impervious to what we have, even against lasers, except electromagnetics. And yet, on an interview thing, this Lazar thing, they kept reiterating about them mining for copper. And I said, wait a minute, what happened to gold? Gold is a perfect conductor. And if you go back into the Bible, the Torah, and all these high-rated priests that were walking around with the Ark of the Covenant, they had these chest plates with diamonds and gold and rubies and sapphires and all this other stuff, which all have frequencies to it. And yet, gold is a perfect electronic conductor, but it's not magnetic.
Now, okay.
Ta-da.
Yeah, that's right. True. There you go.
Think about it.
Okay. This question, again, David Lord, just so you know, I was about to ask that question, so don't worry, I didn't forget. Now,
good question.
This next question, there are a lot, by the way, just so you know.
Look, keep it up, man.
Okay, David Lord. Back to the towers, right?
Towers, yes.
I'm going to read word for word. Please ask Agent about Back to the Future movie and the signs of the Twin Towers.
Gosh, I think I only saw the 1 and the 2 of the Back to the Future. How many series or how many?
There was only 3. The third one took place in 1885.
Oh, that's the one that I probably saw a preview where they went back into the Western time.
Yes.
What was the significance of the Twin Towers at all in that movie at all? I don't remember seeing the Twin Tower connection at all.
I'm wondering if it has to do with part 1 when he runs over a pine tree and it goes from lone pine to twin pine, but that's a different story. Okay, so Russell Grant, are UFOs piloted by humans and is it part of the eyes on for the president?
Yes and no. And no, I can't answer the last one.
Okay. MacArthur Lewis Saint.
And I've seen DeLoreans up close and personal, and I used to bodyguard a millionaire, so I thought I'd throw that in there.
Okay, MacArthur Lewis Saint. What did President Obama and Clinton know about UFO technologies?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What did President Obama and Clinton know about UFO technologies?
I don't know about Obama, but I don't think he knew anything because he's stupid. But that's just my personal prejudiced view about a Muslim who lied to the American public. And even if he did know something, he's trying to allege that he knows something. He still won't tell you. The presidents will not tell you or confirm, no matter what Hillary promises this week. If she gets into office, she's going to lie about it.
I think she'll be too old by the time
Poor Jimmy Carter. Poor Jimmy Carter. God bless him. He's still alive. And I've had contact with him a couple of times even after I left, and I protected him and the first family and Amy and Rosalind. Personally, when Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin were there, all by myself, all by my lonesome, which was kind of cool. But he wanted to release information on Operation Blue Book, which they changed the name. Mm-hmm. And when he got briefed on what was really going on after he became president, he was practically in tears because he couldn't release it. Now, what does that tell you? I'm going to release Operation Blue Book and confirm that there are UFOs, there are aliens, and we're doing this and we're doing that. And then somebody comes in, we're sorry, Mr. President, but you can't do that because there are, and we are working with them, and we are doing things, and you can't tell people because it's national security above.
Ha! You just answered another question. Are we working with UFOs?
I did, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
And I will be glad to revisit that because they're still trying to get human pilots to operate stuff that we think we can operate to a certain level. But if we're not connected to that craft, it makes it harder because we still don't know how to operate it mentally. So they have to attach devices to our brains in a helmet so that we can mentally fly something without controls.
Elon Musk talked about his company Neuralink, that they're working on something to implant near your brain or in your brain, in your head somewhere, that's going to interface with something. Yeah, essentially. All right.
Or the chip tattoo, circuit tattoo thing. They could just peel it on and peel it off or whatever. But you don't want to do that if it slips off. But yeah, same stuff.
As long as we stop before we get to AI, I've just heard from the people that I've interviewed that we don't want to let that genie out of the bottle. All right. Okay. What are your thoughts on UFO/Skinwalker Ranch in Utah?
God, you know what? I just watched a video by the paranormal rangers that work in Arizona, the Navajo Rangers. In fact, I ought to check my email before I finish answering the question real quick, because I did email them last week and confirming, because that stuff is real, and I've had paranormal experiences myself, so I do paranormal investigations on the side for fun or whatever. But that stuff is serious stuff, and I tried to evaluate it and analyze every little thing that came out of these guys' mouths, and they're law enforcement, and these guys don't lie. They're Navajo Indian Rangers. They're not like other types of law enforcement in other cultures where they're going to be New York or someplace, or Florida or some other. I'm just throwing locations.
Let me get to some more before we run out of time here.
Go ahead.
Do you think UFOs or aliens helped NASA get us to the moon?
Did they?
I don't know. That's the question. Did they help us? Do you think they helped us? Yeah.
They didn't help. They didn't do a very good job, but yeah, they could have, but I don't think they did, personally.
Okay.
Because why would we use the type of fuels and go through all the harass type BS procedures when they've got electromagnetic saucers that could just zip you over there in 5 seconds versus something else? And I'm convinced now that the moon is hollow. It's not what we think it is. They've already done that where they shot a explosive. They took what's the reading that they take off like an earthquake, the vibration. They measured it, and they measured that it's hollow. And I said, well, then that proves another point. It's like a base. It's a star of some sort. And then they've got stuff that's found on the dark side that they don't release. And they supposedly have people that disputed that our guys didn't go there. And I said, well, I don't agree with that. I think they did. But there is a lot of other stuff that is left unanswered.
They did admit to somehow erasing and recording over the video.
The star patterns in the sky. I've heard that one. Now, I attended the academy, one of many academies that I've been through in the past, for U.S. Customs in '84 or later in '89 on a separate one. I got promoted on something. They had the actual moon rocks that were there on display at FLETC in Georgia. I go, that's cool. I got up close and personal, looked at it, and I've never seen any kind of rock material on this planet except something like Stonehenge that's different.
Interesting.
It's unique. Yeah, it's very unique.
More and more is being unearthed. That's the truth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Here's a question that I want to ask you, and I wanted to squeeze it in since we already I'm sure it's going to be demonetized anyway. What do you know about QAnon? Do you think he's real? And do you think these 61 indictments that are supposed to indict all these people are going to go down?
Bullshit. Every time I hear QAnon, I keep thinking it's bullshit because if the guy is who they claim he is, just say it and get it on. Because I've heard this since October of last year. Oh, there's 30,000 indictments or sealed
I heard
indictments.
61.
Oh
30,000
no,
is
oh no,
beyond insane.
I'm working up to that. Then it got up to like 66,000, and then recently it's 100,935. Yeah, 100,935. So I'm sitting here going, you know what? Those could be sealed indictments for hundreds of other cases. They still haven't indicted Hillary, Obama, Comey,
Brennan,
etc. Yeah,
right?
yeah. Until they put those guys in cuffs and put them in orange suits and ship them off under martial law to Gitmo and start them on a special vacation down there with 3 meals a day, waterboarding every other day, and lots of intensive sun worshiping on their knees.
With prayer blankets.
No prayer blankets, just hard rock or whatever they've got out there that week. Yeah, you know, I mean...
It's ironic you mentioned Gitmo, because that's what I've heard from a lot of people, is that if they were to be arrested, it would have to be tried in a military tribune, and the best place to put them would be in Gitmo.
Yes, that's a bifurcated yes. He doesn't have to do martial law, but he could to circumvent the alleged bullshit in the justice system, which is not just, because what they're doing is they're giving preferential treatment to these other people who claim that they may have immunity of some sort, which will be their first excuse. Oh, you can't hurt me. I'm a pre-existing president that got impeached, like Clinton, for instance, or Obama, who's not even a natural-born U.S. citizen. That really pisses me off. The guy's not a natural-born citizen, and yet they gave him information that he shouldn't have access to. And then he gave away billions of dollars to Iran. The American people are so goddamn stupid that they let that happen, and yet what are they doing about it? Right
now, yeah, it's not much. Nothing really.
But I don't care how this QAnon, whoever he is, because I got another bunch of sources that I measure information, because that's what I do. I dissect information. I get different sources that give me stuff, and I look at it and go, okay, this sounds real up to a point. This is 75%, 65%. The rest is bullshit. Or the guy's playing a game, and then I'll go, okay, let's see how far he goes with it. Where's he going with it? He's trying to drag you along to believe this bullshit, like some other thing I won't mention on a YouTube channel, that you listen to it and you go, okay, that's cute. This kid's got a channel. He's putting stuff out, but he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about because he's not government. He never worked in government. I don't know of any other ex-Secret Service guys out there like me other than Dan Bongino. And Dan and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. God bless him. But he's not the kind of guy that's going to say it like I will, because I've been through the whole thing.
Now,
they've raked me over the coals for doing my job, so I'm not going to hold back. So
questions are still coming in, but this is what I want to recommend. Okay, I'll guess. We'll take them. Let's take these two for now.
Hey, a little overtime is not bad for me. If you want to go over, let's go over.
Do we have anti-gravity plating technologies?
See, as soon as they said plating, they screwed up the question. Isn't that bad when I can tell people that they're asking the question up to a point and then screw it up by throwing in plating? What the hell plating? Electromagnetic energies and stuff had to do with the special metals and alloys, but plating? Why would they use plating on a UFO material that's solid material, that's so solid and so molecularly conducive to a certain thing? Why would you plate it? It'd be like taking silver and putting gold plating on top of it. What's the purpose?
True.
It doesn't make sense. It's either gold or silver. What do you want?
Okay, here is...
I answered it, but it's kind of a deep answer. But anyway.
From Russell Grant. Were these bigwigs compromised knowingly, and did they willingly know and film themselves in blackmail situations for Blackmail Inc.?
Yes, of course. But which bigwigs?
I'm assuming POTUS is up to Trump.
Let me tell you how the Cold War used to operate, and they still do. The Cold War doesn't mean Russia. It means anybody. North Korea, China, any of the other nasties that are out there. If they can get a high-ranking person at a hotel and have a naked whatever, underage whatever, or animals, God forbid, or something like that. Unless you're Muslim, it's okay according to the Quran. Then that's what they do. They want to get you in a compromising situation. They use it against you, and then that's how you compromise your loyalty oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States or whatever. And then if you do it right, you're supposed to report yourself to Internal Affairs and say, look, you know what, I was drunk, they injected me with something, and they're trying to blackmail me. You work with them. Otherwise, you go commit suicide or something,
Now, this is from Lasha Senya. Do you seriously think past presidents should be arrested and tortured? I say absolutely arrested for hijacking the election or trying to.
Oh, wait a minute, back up. Arrested and tortured?
Yes.
Tortured for what?
That's what she's asking. She says, do you think past presidents should be arrested and tortured? That's all.
That's a curious question.
I'm assuming she's talking about when you mentioned waterboarding.
Oh, yeah. Waterboarding is technically not torture under the Geneva Convention and a bunch of other standards, but I mentioned it in a joking way, facetiously, kind of, for certain people. There are people that do deserve that. And just because they're a former president, according to what I know, does not mean that they're not human and that they didn't violate the law and that they didn't do damage to millions and millions of Americans. So, yeah, I've been there, done that. I understand what that means. And there are a few people on a list that I know about that should go through some severe treatment. Waterboarding is nothing.
That's why it's allowed. That's why, like you mentioned, it's technically not torture.
Yeah,
and as a matter of fact, I had on the show a former CIA agent who was in charge of enhancing her interrogation, and I think it was Khalid something, I forget the name of the person who was the highest ranking Al-Qaeda or something member that he...
Oh, well, wait a minute. I jokingly play one of these videos where they showed some guy, and it's real funny on YouTube. It's really amusing because the guy's narrating. That wasn't Kevin Shipp you were talking to, was it? I know Kevin.
No.
Oh, it was some other guy.
Greek last name. I could tell you after the show. I'll look it up for you.
Well, the point was that's been discussed before. It wasn't John Curacao.
You know what? Get Curacao. Yeah, that is him.
See, I'm good.
Yes, you are. You do.
I surprised myself, but anyway, that stuff's been discussed, and there was a female that was the director in his dissertation about this, and they viewed it, and they said, no, that doesn't look like it's so bad. Do it. Well, then you get into some movies where they're breaking legs and using baseball bats. I think, what was that one with DiCaprio? He played CIA. That was a good movie to watch with Russell Crowe. I'm going to screw up the title. That's a good movie. I recommend people watch that. But when it comes to national security, and you're going to save millions of Americans' lives, like Sicario 1, Sicario 2.
Great movies, by the way. Some of my favorites.
Yes, those are good too. But some of these female political appointees that never carried a badge or a gun, never put their lives on the line, are making decisions about something they have no idea what it's like. Even if you put a little pain compliance hold on to them in a martial arts thing, then they don't understand what pain is. So to just blatantly say, oh yeah, go ahead and do it, then unless it's something like, we'll try it, put a washcloth over your head, lay backwards on a table, and have somebody pour a pitcher of water, lukewarm, over your face, and see how you can breathe and hold your breath or pace yourself in between that. You could probably do okay until they start holding you down a certain way.
Yes,
or maybe holding your nose. Now, if you hold your nose, you can't breathe, then that forces you to go through your mouth.
John Curacao, when he was on this show, and I pronounced him by his last name, said that in order to be part of the enhanced interrogation and to perform waterboarding, he himself had to be waterboarded for training.
Yes.
So he knows exactly what he's doing.
When I was in the police department, we had to expose ourselves directly to mace, tear gas, and things like that, chemical agents, because if we're going to disperse them against other humans,
you want to know what it feels like.
You have to know what you're doing.
And you've been tased then. too?
Um,
Because that's what they're doing
not,
now. I mean, maybe you
not
didn't have
lately.
carry. Oh, not lately, but I'm talking about in your career. I'm assuming they obviously tased you because
No,
police
no, no,
academies they do tase you now.
no. We were above tasers. We went from 0 to deadly force.
Oh, then again, you were guarding the president, ambassadors, first family,
Yeah,
etc.
that's a different deal. But I also worked state and local. I was with San Diego PD. They didn't use tasers at that point, although they had the handheld ones that civilians, you could go buy one, but it was not included as part of the armaments. Nowadays, they got so much junk on their belts. It's like, wait a minute, if I was back in Japan, the police would have a collapsible baton, which is excellent, and you never screwed around with the police. And yet, I've watched YouTubes of these guys doing their duty on the streets, and they're letting these drunks, these crazy people get away with so much. I say, you guys are screwing around. If John Carmen was there, martial arts trained in Japan, I'd go up to the guy. If he doesn't answer the questions and do as I need him to do because he's already under arrest or something, I'm going to put a hold on him and restrain him, cuff him up, and then put him in the back seat of the car after I search him for weapons and clear him and take him somewhere, as opposed to this very kindly, please get in the car, please don't do this, please don't do that, bowing to each other bullshit. No, no, no. It's totally different. If it was in Korea, oh my God, Korean people, they're
North Korea, are
really,
you talking about, or just in South and North in
well,
general?
martial arts training in Korea, South Korea specifically, but they do it in North Korea too. But the way they do martial arts is very quick, very abrupt, and you don't screw with these people because you're not supposed to. You're supposed to respect the badge or their position. And in America, they don't respect the position. I understand that, but you still got to respect who's behind the badge. I supported and protected people in the United States no matter who they were and against other bad badges. That's how badass I am. So try to figure that one out, right? That's kind of deep, but
Now, I think we've wrapped up
no, let's
most of
go.
those
Let's go.
questions.
Let's go some more.
Well, this question, there's an easy answer. Do they waterboard prisoners in America? No, they can't do it on American soil.
Good question, because technically Gitmo is American soil, but it's not within
Sovereign land, yeah.
it's not in the continental United States, which means that if they want to illegally monitor you, they do it through a third country like Canada or England through the Echelon program,
Yes.
which means they bypass Title III or Title VII constitutional FISA. What's FISA this week?
Foreign
It's
Intelligence
useless.
Surveillance Act. I had the NSA whistleblower on a few times, Bill Binney. Long
I
before
know of it.
Edward Snowden, came
Yes.
out, he came out.
Yeah, Ed Snowden in the beginning, when I thought about what he did, I thought, oh, he should have done what I did and followed the rules very meticulously, because I know that if you don't, that they try to use it against you later. But his situation was so grave that he needed to get out of the country. He did what he did, which was right, and they went after Julian Assange, which is illegal. He's not even an American citizen. And then they re-imprisoned Chelsea Manning, and I've talked to her attorney to show support, because what they're doing is like a double jeopardy, but they're claiming, well, they've got a new grand jury in session, they can do it every 18 months. If you don't answer our questions, we have to put you in jail. Bullshit.
Okay, here's another one for you. Did you witness any satanic rituals performed by these bigwigs?
No.
Okay.
But I'm aware of what the question is asking, because a friend of mine, Ted Gunderson, former FBI SAC agent out of Los Angeles, used to ask me years ago, when I first met him in '95, I think it was, right around that time frame, John, did you ever see them bring any kids into the White House after hours, blah, blah, blah? And I said, no, Ted, no. If they did, they would have to sneak them in a certain way, and everybody would have known something somewhere. And if they're doing it for a location because of a certain satanic location in D.C., assuming the White House was a certain point, they would still expose it to other people in Secret Service that would have to know something. So, no.
Well, we should probably wrap at this point, John. We will definitely do this again. People do want to hear you again. We're
Oh, that's a
caught
good.
up on
You,
the
you do
questions,
you
that's for
do
sure.
so well on these interviews, and I love the questions because it's kind of like taking a test question, but I'm trying to give people the information as well as being honest about what I say, and hopefully what I say tells them something without screwing it up. And you know what I mean? Because I'm giving a double answer. I'm giving them enough information that if they know what I'm saying, they can get the answer plus a little bit more out of it if I can get into it. Or it's just something I don't know anything about, and then it gets dry after that. Because some agents or former agents, they'll just play games. And, oh, I can't answer that because blah blah blah.
I
Oh, come
know, I know. I've
on.
approached quite a few. Yeah. Before
Yeah,
I got to you, it took a few. All right, listen. A couple more have come in, so let's just get these real quick before I get your
oh
final
yeah.
statement. Name a bunch. This is from Nicholas Cashmore. Name a bunch of false flag incidents.
Um,
I know. I'm
Gosh,
thinking Gulf of Tonkin.
I've been studying the Alamo lately. And I know that's kind of a funny answer considering what they were expecting to hear, but I got a psychic thing that goes on with me that I can't shake. It's like I've had some paranormal experiences, and I've got this thing pushing me to look at the Alamo. I go, come on, how many times can you watch the friggin' Alamo with John Wayne? How many times can you watch the one with Billy Bob Thornton in there? Well, there's something going on with that. There's a message that I'm supposed to get. 185 heroes against 5,000 Mexican troops to kill you off. Those are good odds for heroes. So that means each guy has to shoot like 30 to 40 guys,
Well,
blah, blah, blah.
Gulf of Tonkin. A lot of people say the September blah blah blah. I don't want to finish the dates because I'm
Yeah.
already
You
going to get in
mentioned Gulf of
trouble.
Tonkin. Let's go back to Gulf of Tonkin. That was under LBJ. Pueblo incident, I'm not sure, but it still looks like it. And then you got more stuff. Anything connected to LBJ, that left-wing Democrat, socialist, communist bastard that had something to do with JFK's murder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen the
yeah,
PBS documentary that actually linked up LBJ for that matter.
yeah. I'm convinced too, but you can't dig him up and put him in
Yeah,
prison.
no, you can't. Now,
But you could do something.
here's
But
one
so,
for you.
no, go ahead.
Do you know if pizza is being used as a code word? The word pizza.
Well, yeah, Pizzagate. Pizza was supposedly used as part of the Pizzagate thing because that's what they allegedly would do is call up. I don't know personally, like saying, "Oh yeah, they're going to order pizza from the White House and somebody's going to order pizza." Do you realize that if somebody gets the cravings for pizza, they're going to call that special guy, the job that I turned down, or his alternate, and they're going to say, "John, I'm craving pepperoni pizza. Get 5 of them with everything on it and some Cokes or something." And that guy has to go out. He orders it. He pays for it. He doesn't tell them who he is. He dresses down. So it's just like anybody going in to get pizza because nobody needs to know where it's going because they don't want to get it poisoned or
Well,
something.
that's why when they buy food for the White House and Air Force One,
Yeah,
they never shop at the same place. They're always wearing civilian clothing, and they
right.
just spread themselves.
Exactly. And even then, you still have to be careful. I mean, that was almost an undercover job. But I said, no, I don't see that as being exciting. What did you do in the Great Deal when you were in Secret Service, Dad? Well, I was the secret shopper for the. No, I don't want to die in my dying bed saying something stupid like that. I mean, wow, I'm so impressed. No, tell us about your famous felony arrests and what you really did. Oh, I exposed corruption. I made lots of felony arrests at the border. I did all kinds of stuff. But
Because you
yeah,
were part of the CBP. That's one thing I should have mentioned earlier.
well, the legacy agency, U.S. Customs Service, and I tend to forget to say it like that, but yeah, people get us confused. I just did an interview filmed at the border a couple of weeks ago, and I met and talked to a Border Patrol guy. They are now designated CBP, even though they still wear the green uniform, the green and white vehicles, blah, blah, blah. They're still Border Patrol. They're still Pinche Migra. That's what they called a lot of us. So it's kind of a Hispanic joke, Pinche Migra thing. We're all Pinche Migra. But no, I was U.S. Customs cross-trained immigration and cross-trained 40 different American U.S. federal agencies, including Department of Defense, in order to do and enforce all the 400 plus laws, rules, regulations of the United States, no matter where I was. So that means if a military flight was coming in from Panama, and I'm saying this for a reason, and it was supposed to land at NAS Miramar, now MCAS Miramar, and it didn't show up, I'm supposed to report it, get the base commander on the phone, and start chewing his ass out and say, look, you've got a plane missing that's worth a lot of money, and those guys didn't report in. You guys are going to get a penalty, and it's going to be pretty hefty. Doesn't matter. Boats, planes, ships, aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, nuclear or not, doesn't matter. U.S. Customs has jurisdiction to do that, and yet some corrupt supervisor would say, no, just come back to the office.
Okay, last one. Is there any conspiracy that you think is too paranoid to believe in?
My first response would be to say no, depending on what it is.
I say flat Earth. That's just stupid to believe in, but I don't know about paranoid.
I would not even waste my time. I would start answering like George Herbert Walker Bush. I will not dignify that question with an answer. How's that?
There we go. Well said.
That's a good one, right?
Now, if you have a final statement, if you had one thing to say to everybody, what would it be?
Oh, goodness. There's so much to say because there's so much knowledge.
And plug in your Patreon page, too. That would anything you wanted to plug in.
Well, if people realize the sacrifices I made as one person, as a whistleblower, because I took a lot of risks and my life to preserve, protect, defend. That's in the constitutional oath that I took, a couple of them, and did my job. And when I reported internally, and they didn't back me up under the law, 18 U.S.C. 111, which is federal agents and stuff, 18 U.S.C. 115, subparent A, subparent 2, under the Clinton administration in 95, 96. That's why I had to go public and eventually left on my own because I wasn't getting the proper support. If the American people realized what they did to me, they could do it to anybody, and why aren't they supporting me? You see, I'm left out in the cold, and there are people with money that could just totally take care of me, and we could expose this stuff even further. We could get attorneys involved. We could get this stuff uncovered, and find out what's going on in our government, and people are just letting it go. And we've got corrupt people in the government. They should have indicted James Comey. They should have done this stuff a couple of years ago, the first day that this new man was in office.
I have a feeling it would be after he wins 2020. And that,
I said
that
wrong.
now. I really do think he's going to win.
That's wrong. That's wrong. In other words, I'm going to stretch it out till the next administration. I need more time. That's why Jeff Sessions wasted 2 years, and then he got
Jeff was a waste.
That's a scam.
He recused himself the moment he got appointed, or the moment he was confirmed, he recused himself.
I know, but the point is, the whole idea is a scam. It's a political ploy. The man in the office now, doesn't matter if it was Obama or Bush or some other guys, they're not law enforcement like me. They're not military like JFK. At least that's a background. And they would have done stuff on the very first day instead of saying, well, we're going to stretch this out because we can get another 4 years out of everybody. And you know what? People are suffering. Right now, I'm suffering. There are other people who are suffering, living on the street. We got Americans, we got vets living on the street right now, dying, not to mention the 22 per day quote on American vets suiciding themselves. For what? And all this BS. And I know people like Kathleen Willey and a bunch of other whistleblowers who were damaged by the Clintons, not to pick on them today, but they're not being helped. They're being used. And even Kanye West was up there at the Oval Office with Jim Brown, and Kim Kardashian has an in with Trump, and she's gotten a second.
Yeah, because of Kanye. Yeah, that's right. They do.
Yeah, and they've got money, and they help people that need a second chance that went to prison. Or there's people in prison that they got lied to, like the Kamala Harris response was.
Yeah, from the debate, yeah.
Right? I didn't even see it, but I heard the quotes about it, and I go, you know what? Tulsi Gabbard was right on point with that, and I support her. But the longer people stretch stuff out, proves my point, is that the man in there now does not have any intent of helping me, and he could. with a stroke of a pen, and he could fix things and bring me back and have me as a special consultant or not. And I could help clear up the stuff at the border, the national security, the human trafficking, which is actually being participated in by actual customs officials. Human trafficking by high-ranking customs officials like John Heinrich. Google that name, the overflight list. And that guy got paid $250,000, and I'm sitting here struggling, and I don't have a retirement. $250,000 would pay for a retirement, a place at the beach, and a brand new bulletproof Beamer.
Nice.
Right?
Well,
no.
With that being said, I want to thank you. Please stay on for a second, and I want to say thank you again off air. Everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. If I decide to do something this weekend, just watch for it. Otherwise, I'll probably set something up for Monday. I need all your help to blow this shit up. Please, folks, I need all the people who've done super chats. I really appreciate you. I want to say a shout out to Two Headed Tasmanian, not just for the super chat, but because he is my second Patreon patron. I got two, folks, two. But everybody who participated in super chat, thank you so much for supporting this show. I need your help, folks. What we do need is we need externships. I need volunteers. Whatever people are good at. I don't know technology very well. I sure as fuck don't know much about social media. That's what I do need. And I need all of you motherfuckers, please reach out to Joe Rogan and get me on that motherfucker show.
Hey, I know that guy.
Just reach out and get him to book me. I booked him for Art Bell, but I'm not going to call him and say, hey, book me. I need you guys to do it because there needs to be a demand. And please, folks, do what you can to spread this around. That way the numbers in here skyrocket to astronomical levels. If you guys want me to stay around doing this, clearly I see all your amazing comments, and I see there's absolute interest in this. But let's make sure other people do, unless it doesn't work out. One way or another, I will stick it out as long as I can, but I know you fine folks that are supporting are doing a damn fine job. Now we just got to get more people. Thank you all. I love you all. God bless you all, and stay safe. Have a good weekend.